Of all the questions our time poses, there's one no one can ignore, and the answer is bound to surprise. The question is this: when Europe and Africa use the same words, rights, dignity, health, family, are they really talking about the same thing? It wasn't a politician who posed it a few days ago. It was a cardinal in an unexpected place, the chamber of the European Parliament in Brussels. And not just any cardinal, he is Cardinal Robert Sarah, an African, a son of Guinea, who grew up under a dictatorship that persecuted the faith. A man who knows well what happens when the powerful decide for the poor. She doesn't speak theoretically. Sarah comes from a village where missionaries brought the gospel. She saw her land go from colonialism to independence, and then to a Marxist dictatorship that closed churches. She knows how to distinguish true help from deception. By the end of this video, you'll understand why those seemingly abstract questions conceal a specific accusation, and why Sarah said to Europe's face in her own parliament, "You're doing it again." Let's start from the surface, from what seems obvious. Europe helps Africa. It sends funds, signs agreements, finances development. What could be wrong with that? It seems like pure generosity, the rich continent reaching out to the poor. And that's exactly how the story is told. But Sarah invites us to stop and ask the first uncomfortable question. Is this aid really free? Or does it come with hidden conditions? Because, and this is the crux of the matter, European funds, the Cardinal denounces, are often tied to a specific agenda. To receive support, an African country must accept certain reforms that pass under reassuring names: sexual and reproductive health, gender equality. Who could possibly argue with such beautiful words? And here's the second, more profound question. But what do those words really mean? Because, Sarah observes, the expression reproductive health often conceals practices against the lives of unborn children. And behind gender equality, the entire ideology of gender is often disguised. The words say one thing, the content dictates another. Can we still understand each other? Sarah asked the room. Do the words we use, rights, dignity, development, freedom, health, gender, family, still mean the same thing in Brussels as they do in Kampala or Conakry? It's a question that seems linguistic, but it's a blade. Because if the same words mean opposite things, then the dialogue is fake. We don't understand each other, we're deceiving each other. And here, the Cardinal descends even further, to a point that very few dare to mention. This ambiguity, he says, is no accident at all. It's deliberate. The words are chosen deliberately because they sound good and conceal what, if stated openly, many Africans would reject. The inconsistency, in short, is deliberate. And be careful, because this issue concerns us very closely. What Sarah denounces as exportation to Africa is the exact same method that has been at work for years within the West, and now within the Church itself. It's the model that empties words to fill them with another meaning. Family no longer means father, mother, and children. Love ends up justifying everything. And even, in the Church, a new word repeated everywhere: synodality, which, however, no one can define. Another Cardinal, Burke, said it a few days ago. There is no definition of synodality. There is no history of it in the Church. It's the same technique, a vague and reassuring word under which to slip in a change that, if stated openly, many believers would reject. And the fruits of this model are already there for all to see. Where it has been applied, In Europe and America, it has brought not unity, but division, not peace, but confusion, not full churches, but empty pews. This is exactly what Sarah fears for her Africa today. That's why his warning isn't a distant affair from another continent. It's a mirror. When he tells Europe, "You're doing it again," he's also talking about what the West has been doing to itself for some time. And these aren't just words. To support his speech, the organizers presented a dossier documenting how the European Union uses financial, legal, and commercial tools to push certain agendas in Africa. Not generic accusations, but documents in hand. Because a continent still deeply religious, tied to family and life, would never openly accept what is imposed on it under false pretenses. So it is persuaded with words and coerced with money. This is why Sarah uses a very harsh expression: ideological colonization. Europe once colonized Africa with ships and guns. Today, she says, it does so with trade agreements and development aid. Yesterday, goods were exported and borders were imposed. Today, ideas are exported and laws are imposed. The tools change. The logic of domination remains the same. And here's the sentence that carries the most weight: "You're doing it again." It's not a casual accusation. It's the diagnosis of an African who recognizes, under the language of rights, the old face of the master. Let's pause, because the paradox is enormous. Those who present themselves as champions of freedom and human rights are, according to Sarah, precisely those who fail to respect the most basic freedom, the freedom of a people to remain themselves. And here, another, even more uncomfortable question arises. If it were truly about freedom, why tie aid to conditions? Freedom isn't imposed, it's offered. What is imposed, by definition, is no longer freedom. A people, Sarah said, has the right to live, preserve, and transmit its own religious and family culture, just as every person has the right to profess their own faith. It's a complete reversal. True intolerance, the Cardinal suggests, isn't that of Africa defending its faith. It's that of a Europe that no longer tolerates anyone who thinks differently from it. Perhaps, and this is the deepest level of all, because those who have lost something cannot tolerate those who still possess it. And Africa still possesses what Europe has lost: faith, children, a sense of the sacred. In fairness, it must be said that not all European aid is poisoned, and that many in Europe offer it in perfect good faith. It would be unfair to paint every cooperation as a conspiracy. And Africa itself has its problems, its injustices, its deep wounds. No one here imagines it as a perfect paradise to be defended en masse. But Sarah's point remains, and it's accurate. Aid must never become a Trojan horse. Those who give with one hand cannot dictate their conscience with the other. For this reason, the Cardinal asked European parliamentarians for cooperation that was free and unconstrained by ideological agendas. Help, he seemed to be saying, but without buying souls. So let's go back to the question at the beginning, the one that seemed so simple. Do the same words still mean the same thing? Sarah's answer is no. But it's not a surrender. It's an invitation to rediscover the true weight of words. May dignity, once again, mean respect for life. May family mean father, mother, and children. May freedom also include the freedom to believe. Because when words lose their meaning, it's not just the language that dies. Truth dies, and with it, the very possibility of human understanding. And this, ultimately, is the battle that an elderly African cardinal went to fight in the heart of Europe. Not against Europe, but for its soul, reminding it that once upon a time, it was precisely faith that made it great. So, we're not leaving the final question to Sarah. We're leaving it to you. When you hear those full, reassuring words, do you ever stop to ask yourself what they really hide? Because learning to ask ourselves this question again is perhaps the first way to avoid being colonized once again. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.